When you ask people around the world if they know Filipino food, a lot of the times their answer is, I know adobo. I don't know how that happened, but it is probably the most famous Filipino dish that we have out there. So today I'm going to show you different ways that I like to make it at home. Before we begin, let's get our facts straight. Adobo has been around for hundreds, maybe thousands, I don't know, hundreds of years. And before it was called adobo, which was a term that the Spanish conquistadors actually dubbed the dish when they encountered it, it was probably natively called something else. Now remember, this is a time where there were no fridges or cold storage, so basically you would have to preserve food using different ingredients. This was one method where you would basically boil meat, proteins, probably vegetables also, in some vinegar and salt. So yes, I hate to break it to you, the most traditional way of making this dish is cooking your proteins or vegetables with vinegar and salt, not soy sauce. So the one that uses soy sauce and vinegar is definitely the most popular one, but probably wasn't the first way it was made or the traditional way. But more importantly, who the cares? How far back do we need to go in history to call something traditional? This dish sparks so many online debates of people calling each other out saying that's right, that's wrong. Who cares? If you enjoy eating it, if you make it a certain way because your grandma and her grandma taught her how to make the dish, then you do you. Let's all share our recipes, let's all respect our recipes, and maybe try out someone else's recipe. It might be really good, and that's why we do these videos. So today I'm gonna show you my favorite ways of making adobo. The first one's gonna be a coconut milk adobo, which is absolutely delicious. If you have like turmeric and stuff, you can also add that in. Mwah, so good. The second one is more of like a dry adobo. Then we're gonna do a pork adobo, and then finally, my personal favorite comfort food in the whole wide world, Adobo Flakes. Let's do it.
Some people begin by marinating their chicken. I like to go straight to cooking it. Okay, let's start with how I make my basic adobo with soy sauce. A couple of tablespoons of neutral oil goes into a pan. Throw in some crushed garlic cloves, about 6 of them, until just slightly tender. We don't want these to get brown just yet. Add in your bone-in chicken pieces. I like to use thighs because it's fatty and flavorful and it's very hard to overcook. Some people will add onions. I really don't like onions in my adobo. Personal preference. We're not looking for color here. We just want to render out some of the fat, so cook it for about 3 minutes per side on medium-high heat. When you have a nice layer of fat rendered, add in 1/3 cup of white vinegar, 1 cup of water, and anywhere from 1/8 to 1/4 cup of soy sauce. Really depends on you. Bring it to a low simmer and then add in your whole peppercorns, about 1 or 2 teaspoons, and some bay leaves. I use about 5 pieces here. Cover it all up, and that is just gonna simmer very gently for about 30 minutes. Now this time frame changes depending on what cuts of the chicken that you used. Halfway through, flip the chicken over. It's ready when the sauce has an almost syrupy consistency, just not as thick as a syrup, but still not too liquid. If you want more sauce, you can always add a little bit of water and then reduce it again, but be careful, you might have a tendency to overcook your proteins. Okay, wait. Let's stop the edit for a second right now on this shot. Just focus on this. At this point, you could potentially be done. Actually, you are done. If you want to eat it now, you can. This is a very simple one pan, one process adobo that is already delicious in its own right. So basically, let's just call this recipe number 1, the simplest one of them all. Now, if you want to take it one step further, just like I like to, take out all the chicken and sauce from the pan, add some oil back in, and get it hot. If you want, you can reuse that fat that was rendered out while cooking. This is always extremely useful. Once hot, fry your chicken one more time. This is where we'll build color. You can now place this straight back in the sauce, or you can add the sauce back into the pan to dry out the sauce even more and trap it within the chicken. The result is an extra juicy and flavorful adobo, but that is not covered in sauce.
Some people like it saucy, some people like it really oily, some people like it dry. Okay, so this is really comes down to you trying the recipes and you figuring out what you like. If you do want something that's saucier, then you need to adjust the amount of vinegar and soy sauce that you add, but more importantly, the amount of water that you add, which will then cook down further as you cook that protein. If you want something that's oilier, then you need to give it more time to kind of render more fat. And this is where refrying can really help because it just causes more oil to kind of come out of the proteins and it makes it so succulent. My personal favorite is having on my plate half sauce and half oil. Oh, so good. And then finally, you can cook it down even further and get something a little drier where the sauce is quote unquote trapped inside the protein.
For our coconut version, let's rewind back to adobo number 1. Remember this guy? Okay, so same exact thing. Take out the sauce and the chicken from the pan, reheat some oil, fry off the chicken on both sides for some amazing color, add your sauce back in once you've tossed it over, let that simmer for a minute before adding about 1 1/2 cup of coconut milk. Bring the heat down to low and simmer this a little further until some of the fat from the coconut milk starts separating. This goes on some rice, and you can top it off with some sliced red chilies if you want to. A little bit of herbs also wouldn't hurt.
Boom. Oh, that's so good. The chicken is just so tender. It's so rich. The chilies don't bring much heat because these are not very hot chilies, but it complements the coconut milk because the coconut milk is heavy, right? The coconut milk is quite creamy. It's also very rich, and the balance of the vinegar and the coconut milk, perfect as well. Before we move on, I want to quickly thank the sponsors of this video, Gaviscon Double Action. Now, I don't know about you guys, but back in March, April, and May, it just wasn't a great time for me. This whole thing, this whole situation that we are all in started to really blow over. I was stuck here in Australia, and I still am here in Australia 7 months down the line. And just in the beginning, I just didn't know how to handle myself and handle the situation. And you know, I have businesses and work and teams back home in the Philippines, and me not being able to be there to manage all that, uncertainty just made me very stressed and anxious about everything. And I started getting flare-ups of like acid reflux, indigestion, heartburn. I had no idea what was causing it because I was eating healthy, I was eating good food. And after some research, I found out that all that can actually be caused by things like stress. And so I started taking Gaviscon Double Action, and it really just helped quickly alleviate all those conditions and symptoms. So Gaviscon Double Action actually relieves both heartburn and indigestion in one go, which is absolutely fantastic if you can't really tell which one you're having. So I'm not a medical professional by any means, but what I do know is that Gaviscon Double Action, well, it's in its name, acts in 2 different ways. The first one is this thing here called sodium alginate, which basically creates a raft that prevents any kind of acid reflux or excess acids to come back up. So it keeps stomach acids where they're supposed to be, which is in your stomach. The second one is the antacid that's in here, actually just neutralizes any excess acid that you might have. Even pregnant women can take it. Look, you can probably do a lot by leading a healthy, balanced lifestyle, by not being anxious, by not being stressed, by not overeating, but sometimes we're not in control of our environment. And sometimes our environment puts our body and our mind in a very vulnerable position. And if this year has taught us anything, it's that. And also, you know what? 2020, we're not gonna have a lot of wins this year. So if you do feel like eating something fatty, something comforting, something that you grew up eating, like the adobo recipes that I'm showing you today, you should be able to do so. And that's why I really do recommend taking Gaviscon Double Action, because I've been taking it for a while, and it just makes sure that you're always G, whatever the situation. I hope that helps. Let's get back to cooking.
For a pork adobo, I like to use a rib crosscut with a little bit of bone and no skin, obviously, just some fat. Cut this into 1 to 2 inch cubes. Get your pan out. I'm using the same one as the chicken because there's probably a bunch of flavor left in that oil. And in go our pork pieces. Now cook them until they're brown on one side, and then once flipped, you can go ahead and add in about 8 cloves of garlic that were sliced. Mix all this together and cook it down further until some of the fat off the pork renders out. We're gonna add 1/4 cup of dark soy sauce, 1/3 cup of white vinegar, and 1 cup of water. 1 teaspoon of black peppercorns, and a couple of bay leaves once more. Cover this and gently simmer for about 40 minutes on low heat. Just keep checking it to make sure that your sauce doesn't dry up. Again, you can always add in a little more water if you need to. Same process as with the chicken. Once ready, refry the pork for color and crispiness and add your sauce back in. Now you take this out depending on how saucy or dry you want this to be. With pork adobo, I really want some extra flavorful fat, so I really look for that dark soy kind of glaze and that little shimmering pool and puddle of fat on the plate. That drizzled on some rice is heaven. The pork here should be fork tender. Okay. Now let's pretend you didn't finish this adobo. I call bull, honestly. As mentioned before, this is a method to preserve food, so you could possibly keep this in the fridge easily for, I don't know, like a week, and just reheat it when needed. Trust me, sometimes reheated adobo is just better. If you really can't get through it, and I still don't believe that, take it all out from the fridge, place it in a pan, and then slowly reheat it. Shredding the meat with your hands is quite hard when the fat is coagulated and the meat is hard, so heating it down will make it slightly softer and easily to kind of pull away. Now start shredding this into thin strands, remove the bay leaves and any peppercorns that you find. I personally don't like biting into whole peppercorns, so that way we can get the shreds as clean as possible. Get a pan out, heat up whatever oil residue you have from warming the meat, and fry these in very small batches, making sure that the pan is not overcrowded. This is really important to get the right texture. I've seen some people deep fry adobo flakes just to be able to get this dry, crispy texture. But if you're like me and you don't want to deep fry it, it's really important to leave space in the pan so that the meat has space to dry out and for the sauce to really evaporate. Once you start seeing some crispiness and browning happening, flip it, mix it around, and just do the same thing until you manage to dry up a majority of what you have in the pan. This will take about 5 to 10 minutes per batch.
Okay, last but not least, and personally my favorite, adobo flakes. A lot of the times I actually end up making adobo just to make adobo flakes. There's a lot of people that do it differently. You'll have some really dry ones. You'll have some that come in jars with lots of oil. I'm honestly not a fan. I like them kind of like shredded, but still kind of like chunky pieces. I don't like them too shredded, and I don't want it too oily. I like it actually quite dry. So that, I have some rice here. This is like leftover rice, it's quite cold. I'm just gonna try a little bit of it with the adobo flakes. I think that with rice, maybe a fried egg and like some achara or something and some vinegar. This is like the Filipino sushi bake. From time to time, it's really important to eat what you want to eat, just for pleasure, if it makes you happy, especially nowadays. Remember to always be G, and to be able to have moments and meals like this. So good. Thanks for watching, guys.